What is up, guys, and welcome back to episode 10 of Sunday Morning Conversation, where we talk with content creators, large, small, and everywhere in between, about trading cards, business, Pokemon, everything in that space. If you want to be in a future episode of Sunday Morning Conversation, feel free to email me in the description below or on Instagram. This week, we have yet another banger of a guest, someone who I have been watching religiously, probably for the last year or two. Definitely different content than I am used to, watching the kind of building from the ground up on the bulk side of things, but nonetheless, very valuable information and an amazing person and businessman. Let's welcome Nostalgia Nomics to the channel. Nostalgia, man, what's going on, brother?
What's up, man? Happy to be here.
First of all, thank you again for giving me the time. I definitely appreciate it. For those who maybe somehow don't know who you are, if you want to do a little quick intro about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like anyone that's probably started watching my channel in the last year or two, they probably think like, oh, okay, he's like a streamer. But I got back in the hobby back in like 2015 as just a straight collector. I just liked this stuff again. Really started, I guess, be more of like watching the markets and, investing or collecting for value. Maybe like a year later in like 2016, when I started to realize things I just started collecting a year ago were actually rising in value, and came up with this idea that, oh, a lot of people my age are probably going to want to chase their nostalgia, and started kind of making plays on that. And then, fast forward to like 2022 is where I kind of took the leap, made the YouTube channel, stopped being the guy in the comments or a guy in the online forums talking, and wanted to kind of get out there and get my own thoughts. And then it just kind of exploded from there. Channel grew. I started doing more things in like the business side of things, trying out more avenues of the business, whether it be with, buying and flipping collections, grading cards, I tried vending for a bit, a little bit of everything. And, eventually we just kind of putting together enough scratch each month to, make it my full-time job, and took the leap a couple of years ago. And then, I really started streaming from, hanging out with Pokey actually at a Collecticon, where I was just looking for other routes to make income, trying to grow my income. And he mentioned he used to do it, and it might be a good route to go, and, kind of be like a good addition to what I was doing. And so we started out just doing like once a week, and then turned into twice a week. And then it just kind of became like the majority of what we did, and really took over. And so that's probably how a lot of people know me now, since we're live so much streaming. But I've kind of started out and done a little bit of every different aspect of this. I never got into it as much as the bulk side, like the actual singles and the bulk on TCG and stuff. But pretty much every other aspect of the business, I think I've had my hands in at one point or another in the last 10 years.
That's cool to know, because especially as someone who's, like I said, finding you just in the last year and a half, it's kind of interesting to know that you have had your hand in a lot of different aspects of the hobby. When you say you get started in this in 2022, I've always wanted to ask, because you are like really charismatic and outgoing, and you're like handle talking to a camera and people very well. Was part of you getting into this in 2022 kind of getting over any of those hurdles? Did you have any hurdles as far as that whole aspect of being personable, being out there, or have you always pretty much been that kind of guy, and was just a really easy transition to get into content?
Yeah, unfortunately for me, that was kind of more the natural part. The learning side was a lot more of like the technology side, and learning all the social medias. Because like I was someone that like, in high school and college, like I had a MySpace and a Facebook, but like, just basically used them, just obviously like a normal person would. So like, I never had an Instagram, never had a Twitter, never, had a YouTube account, like don't know a lot about that side. That was the hardest part for me. As far as like outgoing, yeah, that's just kind of my personality, my whole life. Like, and then I was in, I ran my own businesses. I was like in sales. So I was just always kind of good at always like breaking the ice, talking to new people all the time, like being conversational. So that was honestly, the easiest part for me. The hardest part was everything else, actually.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because it's kind of the same with me. I've always been a generally outgoing person, but I feel like, I'm not sure how old you are, but being 41, in high school, I was like right on the cusp where computer lab and technology was starting to be a thing, and you kind of had a fork in the road of, do I want to start learning computers, or I want to keep like straight away from it? So that is my biggest struggle right now, and I always feel so overwhelmed and feel like I'm going to look like a fool when I get something wrong, or if I'm streaming and something goes wrong, it's like, okay, it feels like the end of the world. How do you handle situations like that, where whether it's technology or anything that might happen bad in your business or on a stream? Have you ever had an issue with dealing with it's the end of the world scenarios, or have you been able to just kind of roll with the punches? And how would you suggest people who might be in that position and use it as an excuse to not get into content or get into doing something like that, to help get over that kind of fear that would be really holding someone back?
Yeah, so 9 times out of 10, you're gonna be your largest critic. The more attention you give to something, the more attention others are gonna give to it. The less attention you give to it, the less others are gonna give to it. And so like you know this as well as I do.
Yeah.
Pokemon is terrible with their, everything has to do with putting packs together, right? And so every time you go through packs, you're gonna go through cards that are, flipped upside down, that are turned the other way, that are, misplaced, whatever, right? And so, obviously the first thing, all the trolls in the chat are gonna do is say, oh, resealed packs or all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so, if you sit there and, really give them the time of day and really like, wallow in it and it's like it's just gonna bring more attention to it. As long as you just roll past it and act like nothing happened, if someone's really being an idiot, just ban them in the chat and move on. No one really, really cares that much. Or same thing with a live stream. If something screws up with a live, like as long as you just kind of roll it off like it's no big deal, like, oh, let me fix that real quick, no big deal. People usually don't treat it as a big deal. Again, there's always that one or two people, but like majority of people don't. And so like my best advice would be like, don't give anything more importance or more attention than you should. And a lot of the times it's just going to roll off and people are going to just kind of move past it. It's not going to be that big of a deal because at the end of the day, I mean, no matter how big either of our channels are or whatever, we're just people online talking about Pokemon, selling Pokemon, ripping Pokemon cards. Like it's not the end of the world either way. And, hopefully you build enough track record on your channel to where little mistakes here or there, little mess ups here and there are not going to like deter the majority of your audience. Obviously, we're in the online space. You're always going to deal with trolls here and there, but as long as you can just roll past those people, I just try not to give it too much attention.
Have you always had that gift of not really caring what people like, feel or say about you? Because I would assume that in the beginning maybe there was a little bit of getting used to that, and I know I've had that where I'm thinking pretty much everything I'm talking about is pretty, nothing inflammatory, and all of a sudden there's always one or two people that's just like, I don't know how you got that from what I said, but I guess it's what it is. Have you always, like I said, have you always been able to kind of let the water roll off your back, or is that an acquired skill that you've had to learn?
Um, I mean, pretty much. So I did have an issue with it when I was new and it wasn't more and more about like, oh, people like didn't like me. I was always worried that things people were putting out there or trying to say about me, not just in my channel, but on other channels, was gonna like somehow like discredit like me or like, because I was smaller and a lot of the people that were coming at me were like larger and they had larger audiences and probably a lot of the same audience that I was trying to capture as well. Were going to, kind of like unanimously trash me or what I was saying, what I was doing to where it was just going to kind of like leave me in a ditch and unable to grow. And so that was like the first, thing. And then as I started to grow, I cared less and less about that. But then, as I started to do more of the streaming, I had a lot of people coming out, always attacking me on that. And so then I was always worried about the business, right? I'm always worried about like, well, I mean, dude, I hope this doesn't start affecting, the business, the numbers, the growth. Like this is what I do for a living now. And so like, yeah, I think it's hard not to care about those things. But then, as you grow and like you see, like more and more people say stuff, more and more people try to come at you, and the numbers continue to stay steady and grow, you start to realize you're like, oh, okay, so none of this stuff is matters at all. Like the
Yeah.
people that rock you are gonna rock with you. The people that hate you are gonna hate you. There's probably nothing you're gonna say to sway anyone either way. And so it's just like just keep doing your thing. People are gonna like it. They're gonna like it. The people are gonna have a problem with it. They're gonna have a problem with it. And yeah, I think it just comes with like time and experience of seeing how those things affect you. And then when you see they don't, it becomes easier and easier to not care.
Not that you get a lot, but I've always thought that to a certain extent, maybe unnecessarily, that you get a little more hate amongst the finance investing kind of side than other streamers. And I never under really stood why. I know there's a big, one of the red button topics is like scalper versus investor, and like where's the line and what's the difference? Where do you draw the line between what's considered a scalper and an investor, or being an evil capitalist? Because you have guys like Rudy who have been around for a long time, and they're just like, for the most part, completely loved. And then there's people on the complete other side that it's just, for whatever reason, if it's just their personality, that they are hated. And I've seen videos that you've done where you said literally nothing wrong. It's solid advice. And then it's still just like, unwarranted hate that I don't understand where it comes from. Where do you draw the line as to what, the ends of the spectrum, and how do you kind of gauge where to go as far as how you talk about it and make sure that you're not saying anything, too
Yeah.
inflammatory?
Well, one thing I can say is, I started in a time where you used to get made fun of for investing in modern steel product. It was actually laughed at. It was not something that people sought after. It was not something that was hard to find. Things sat on Pokemon Center for years. Things sat on Walmart and Target shelves falling off. And so you could find everything on eBay, usually around distro price, if not just over distribute, well over under MSRP. And so, I started out at a time where I used to just get ridiculed, made fun of for even thinking this stuff was investable. And then to see that flip to where you get, everyone angry that you are investing in stuff and own the stuff, that tells me it's nothing more than the market cycles. And so like that doesn't bother me. Now, as far as like the hate in the beginning was I first started to get a lot of the hate when I started to compare Pokemon to like the S&P or like other, what you hear as mainstream investments, where a lot of people had really hard pushbacks to that in the early days because they just didn't want their hobby associated with anything that had to do with just finance, and you're not loving the art, you're loving only the numbers. And so like, and I get that. I truly understand people that have that mindset when it's like to them it's just a hobby. But what they have to understand is every hobby in the world has a business attached to it. It doesn't matter what you take. Like if you want to go play golf, there's a business around golf, right? If you want to go, anything you want to do in life, there's usually a business attached to that allows the hobby to continue to to outlast. And so, there's just again, it's like that talked about before. There's always going to be the two sides of things that you're never going to kind
Sure.
of come together and agree with each other. But I mean, as far as like the other hate I get, I think, my personality is probably just like brash or abrasive to some people. They don't like how I say things or the way it comes about. I'm not like a touchy feely type person. I'm much more of a like, hey, this is the way it is, like it or not. And I don't think a lot of people like, especially in this hobby. I mean, you got to remember a lot of people in this hobby are people that are trying to kind of escape the real world and they want to come here to kind of like a safe place to, just enjoy the cardboard and stuff. So when they, their algorithm pushes them me and they're used to seeing like, some girl dressed up in an Eevee costume ripping cards or something, and then they get recommended me because we both have Pokemon in our titles and thumbnails. I understand how it rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but like anyone who's like into like investing, market, finance, a lot of those people I'm not rubbing the wrong way too much. It's more of like the clash of kind of the two worlds, like the true collector hobbyist, only care about the art, don't talk about money, compared to then you see me and it's like, oh, you know.
So I guess the next question is, what type of incentive do we need to see you in an Eevee costume on your next bridge stream?
Yeah, right. Maybe one day, man.
Yeah,
Never say never.
it's funny because this is something I've learned now. I just, as of this video, I kind of just did my first big deal where I sold a lot of my back stock of bulk for a sizable amount of money, which is about 10 grand that I've never really had.
It was
And
all bulk.
up mostly, I mean, it's bulk. So over time, I've bought and pieced out and sold. I've kind of like been like a list everything guy. So I would just list everything. People would build master set lists and all sorts of stuff. And
Yeah.
I got my computer and my camera and I got all this stuff from it, and I got the opportunity to just liquidate it and kind of just try to get to the next level of doing things other than bulk. But the one thing I've learned in doing that is you have to be brash sometimes. Like it's okay to be the nice guy, but especially in a hobby like this or a business like this where you're dealing with collectibles and everyone's trying to nickel and dime or wheel and deal, everyone's always looking out for their own interests for the most part, whether you're a collector or a seller. And someone like yourself and me included now is like, it's, you kind of have to forge that kind of personality when you're doing this, or you're unfortunately just going to get taken advantage of. Do you have the same sentiment like that? Like, is there any chink in the armor where sometimes you kind of feel like you can, trust some people more than others, or do you try to keep it as status quo? Like, hey, this is strictly business, no hard feelings, but this is kind of the way I got to handle things and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, man. I think a lot of it's just like everyone has a different personality. I think a lot of us are born with it, and then others, kind of feel like you're nurture, like how you come up, how you're brought up, kind of like adapt more of it. But I mean, I think it's just who I am. Like I'm much more like a task focused. Like I'm very competitive. I've been competitive my whole life in sports. Like I've always played like made my way up to like the top level of whatever sport I was at. Like You know, so I'm always like super competitive. It's like in this business, I'm trying to like find out who's doing it well and how I can compete with them. And
Sure.
if they have little moats they've dug where they have like, you know, negotiated rates somewhere, they're on different platforms I can't get into, or they have different deals or relationships with distributors, like I need to look for other ways I can compete with them. And one of the best ways to compete online is attention. I think attention is the only kind of thing that levels things out. If someone already has distribution, they already have like, you know, a lot of money built up, a lot of unrealized gains, large collection, large amount of capital. They have relationships built, you know, whatever it may be. I think attention is kind of the, you know, leveling factor that can kind of get you to where you can start getting your foot in the door places. You can actually start competing with people, even though they have a lot of advantages than you when you're getting in late. And so, like I've always talked about, like, I always feel behind, like, because there's so many people in this hobby that have been doing this much longer than me. So I always feel like I'm behind. I'm always looking for new ways to compete. And so, because of that, like, you know, with content, you know, there's people out there. Like, let's be honest. Like, I mean, Pokerev himself, he's always been pretty level. Leonhardt, you got Danny Phantump. I mean, there's a lot of people that have done it, kind of just being, you know, really just nice dudes. You know, just enjoying the cards, just not really doing anything too brash. But you know, a lot of people that do really well on social media, you kind of gotta get in people's face. You kind of gotta come at. You gotta make some hot takes. You gotta come out there and bring some energy, some enthusiasm, and you know, you're gonna say some things that divide people, but that draws engagement in the comments, puts you to the top of the algorithm. And so, yeah, I mean, it was all strategic. It was all, you know, kind of my plan is like, well, I got to do something to be able to kind of compete with when there's so much, you know, competition. And that's mainly the reason. It's a little bit of like own personality, and then two, it's like, you know, obviously making some like some hard stances and what I believe in, but like putting them out there online
Sure.
so that you know you can kind of like draw that line in the sand and be like, hey, I'm on this side, they're on that side, so we're gonna see who's right.
Yeah, and you know what's weird about not weird, but funny about that scenario is like anyone else who would be in your or my spot or someone who wants to make content, they would be doing the same thing, but because they're not, they're gonna, you know, judge from the outside looking in. I mean, I can even mention situations at my work where, you know, I'm sure in your previous jobs there was always a particular task during the day that some people would gravitate to other more than others. And like for me, for example, and then I work in a pharmacy, there's certain stations that are a little more preferable because you don't have to deal with customers as much. So if you're there early, you get to kind of take your pick and choose that station. Well, and it never fails that everyone who comes in afterwards goes, "Oh, yeah, of course he's going to be there." It's like, yeah, but if you got here first, you'd be here too. Like, what are we talking about? So I try to keep that in mind when it comes to those kind of things, because it's just it's hard to weed out that kind of talk sometimes. But like keeping that in my head is just like, okay, if these people were in my position, I know they'd be doing the same. So you just kind of have to block that type of talk out and leave it where it is.
Well, and it's even harder in the beginning, you know, like especially with YouTube and other social medias, because you're making $0 in the beginning, like
Yeah.
literally zero. And even when you get monetized for the first time, you're making very, you know, small amounts of money. And so it's like you're putting forth all this effort and doing all this work when you could have been putting all that effort and work into whatever business you were doing with you, like doing the bulk, whatever else, where you're actually making income and seeing returns from it. And so you're having to take this risk and put all this work and effort into hoping that you're going to be able to draw enough attention to where this is going to turn into something that's going to improve your business and not just something that's a drain on your business where you
Yeah.
could be spending hours elsewhere. So like that's one of the hard parts in the beginning too, is making that jump and putting in the work for, you know, you don't know if you're going to get reward. At least when you go to work, no matter what job anyone has, you're getting a paycheck. Whereas with this, like you could have done YouTube for a year and seen nothing and didn't really help the business much at all, and you just wasted your time. And so, like a lot of people need to see that too.
Yeah, and I mentioned this in an older episode where, you know, I had made a YouTube channel and I had done like a couple intro videos, like 9 months to a year apart for 3 years, and I always had, you know, it's anyone who does YouTube would be lying to themselves if they didn't know that they could have a little bit of extra money or have a little bit of a side income. I think that at this point, it's you'd be lying to yourself. But also there's the caveat to that where you kind of have to enjoy doing it because, you know, authenticity is king now. And if you are putting content out there on the daily, but you obviously are, you know, putting on a facade, it's going to be hard to garner that attention. When you started, was there a point for you where you were like, man, I don't know if this is ever going to take off? Or were you always just like, I'm going to do this no matter what because I love doing it? Where was that beginning of the journey for you? Because I know a lot of people I talk to now, are, very nervous to start doing any kind of content because they don't think anybody's going to watch. And I always try to preach, no one is going to watch. I mean, the algorithm will give you the couple of like freebie, impressions and this, that, the other, but they're not already watching now. So you might as well just put it out there anyway. So I'd be wondering kind of when you first started, what your worries were and how you got over that to push through to where you are now.
I started my channel out of frustration, so probably not the best reason. um, like a lot of, I guess you could say, like the Pokemon investing market channels at the time, they were preaching completely different messages than what I believed in, and I would always let my thoughts be known in disc and like not Discord at the time, but like comment sections, online forums, and it would constantly just get like struck down by the crowds, by the masses, because they were all on board with different thoughts. And it just kind of finally boiled up to where like I'm gonna start a channel. I'm gonna get people, hearing the other side of this. I'm gonna show the other side. It was very like more that competitive side of me. It was just like I am going to show people there is a better way. I am going to show people that you don't need to, only go left. You can go right. And a lot of that was like, back in the day, it was like all geared towards vintage, and modern investing was very kind of frowned upon. It was seen as like the gateway, like to Pokemon. Like, oh, you'll find Pokemon with modern, but anyone that gets serious, they move back to vintage, or you can't actually like invest or make money in this stuff or whatever. And I just felt like it was like completely wrong. And also the thing I loved about modern was, it was at the time, it is hard. Everyone's gonna hard to hear this now. At the time, it was accessible to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it was frowned upon. Everyone wanted to go to these like low pop vintage cars, these very high end cars. At the time, they were hundreds or thousands of dollars, and people wanted to go there for the investment. And I'm just like, well, that's not cool. Like, no one can even buy that stuff. There's very few on the market. Everyone, all the people that own those were like all part of different like online forums together, and like they pretty much knew like 90% of the people that owned each card back then, because it was such a like small hobby. And I'm like, well, that's where like the whole cabal thing came from the beginning. So it's like, well, it's so easy to manipulate this then. I'm like, with modern, it's open to everybody, it's everywhere. Anyone has an opportunity, everyone can buy at the same price. There's no gatekeepers. And I felt like it was going to do better because that's where the popularity was going. The art was, better, full arts and all that. And so like the main thing when I started my channel was to show like the opportunity in modern investing. You could do just as good, if not better, than having to go find all these, search all day long for all these rare, scarce cards and all this stuff. And that was like the main like formation of my channel, was really to kind of fight back against that rhetoric at the time.
Yeah, I think between you and Rudy and maybe a few others that I'm not thinking of, it's kind of insane how people always go through the same motions of never taking the opportunity to invest when they have the opportunity to invest. It's the same old story. More recently was Scarlet and Violet. I mean, Scarlet and Violet base through what Paradox? Oh, what was it? I think Twilight was the last set that was like before Surging, and it was all so available. And now it's like, oh, everyone's kicking themselves. Oh, I should have gotten some now. And we're kind of going through not necessarily the same thing now, but soon, probably when Winds and Waves comes out, something's going to happen. And the cycle goes on and on and on and on and on. As now, I'm not necessarily asking for investing advice, but someone who wants to try to get started in investing or trying to figure out what to do, what's maybe the best way to go about starting a collection, because a collection is kind of investing in a way, or how did you start kind of picking out what you wanted to invest in? Yeah.
First, I would say investment I ever made as a strict like investment. I moved into it in the fact that I wanted to move up in value, and I bought like large amounts of it. Was evolutions. And evolutions back in the day was the same thing. Nobody wanted it. You can go back and watch like old YouTube videos, and people would open collection boxes and they'd be like, "Oh, evolutions packs." Like it was seen as like a dud pack. And the boxes stayed in like the $80 to $90 range
Oh
for a
yeah.
long period of time, multiple reprints. And so I just believed that well, base sets are eventually going to be too expensive. What you got, legendary collection that was basically a reprint. Like there's just no other place to open a set that's kind of like a base set for less than a couple $1,000s at the time for a base set box. And I'm like, eventually people are going to want to come back and open this, because they're not going to be able to open base set. They're going to want to pull this Charizard. And so like that was kind of like my main thing, is that I didn't think it was going to do what it did, obviously, but I was like, man, I feel like this is going to be at least a $500 box in the next 5 or 10 years or whatever, especially seeing what like other boxes at the time
Hmm.
were already doing things like black and white era and things like that. So that was just my first thing is just the thought that what other people are going to want. That's kind of my whole scenario when I got back into this. I was much more involved in vintage stuff from 2016 to 2019, 20.
Oh,
And it was always, I've got back in this hobby out of just pure love. I was like 25 years old and, I just wanted to chase my childhood. And I'm like, a lot of other people my age are likely going to want to do this because Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, things like that were big parts of our childhood, vintage video games, all that. And I'm like, a lot of people are going to want to do this. And so I want to own this stuff for when people want it, because when a lot of people want it, it's going to drive the price up. So like that was kind of my first in. And then, it just kind of went from there. Like new sets would come out, like Burning Shadows came out with that Rainbow Charizard that everyone loves. So I started to put some Burning Shadows away. Like I really liked Shining Legends at the time. I got some 20th anniversary generations to put away because I was like, oh, anniversary
that's a
sets,
nice one.
anniversary things usually do
That's a
well.
nice one.
Yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there. But like again, it's so hard now because everything's scalped, everything's sky high out of the gate. There's no time, everything's like a rush. Whereas back then it was so much more fun because you had to actually like, predict what you thought was going to happen. You had time to like make that decision. Everyone like laughed at you instead of was angry at you. So that was even more fun to like try to prove people wrong. Now it's like so almost like agreed upon and like known and everyone wants it. And it's so expensive that it's just like, it has taken
Yeah.
away some of that, some of that fun because instead of like proving anyone wrong, you're just like, well, yeah, of course it goes up. You're just lucky to be able to have it. It's just like, okay. But I mean, right now, dude, it's so hard. It's so hard right now. I think the best thing you can do right now is, if you're collecting cards, if you do are lucky enough to enjoy like the popular cards, the popular Pokemon, a lot of those do tend to do really well. If you look back in
Sure.
history, they tend to do very well also. As far as like sets are concerned, it does seem like we have very much got to the point where as long as you stick with the good sets, with the popular Pokemon that everyone wants, that everyone loves, no matter what happens in the 2, 3 years they're in print, they usually always are going to do well. It looks like. I mean, you look at Crown Zenith, 151, Paldean Face, Destin Rivals, now Phantasmal and Ascended. What do they all have in common? They're all just the same Pokemon. They're all
Yep.
Charizards, Gengars, Evolutions. Like, it's people just want the popular stuff they've always loved and the good art and the good sets. And so it's like, my best advice nowadays would be as long as you have a good time frame in mind, don't get as hung up on the price points. I think a lot of people are getting hung up on the price points, and that's why they're missing out. I would say don't get as hung up on the price points. It's kind of like buying a stock. It's like, well, I don't want to buy $100 stock, even though it's a, 20-year-old tech company. It's likely going to be here forever because it's $100 a share. I want to try to take a chance on this $2
Yeah.
stock that no one knows about. It's like, dude, just buy the $100 stock. You're going to get less shares, but they're more likely going to perform well. That's what I would say. Like right now, it's like just buy the good sets that are probably going to perform well. It's going to cost a little more. You're going to be able to afford a little less, but you're probably going to do a lot better with them.
That's I actually just what did I do? It was for my personal collection, but I finally decided to buy a 151 ETB, even though I don't want to spend $600 on it. But I was just like, you know what? That's obviously not going down anymore. Let's just go ahead and knock that out. Not only that, but I feel like Perfect Order is like where Shrouded Fable was a year ago. Like even though Perfect, I think that's just a small set like Shrouded Fable too, but I think there's a lot of people think when they invest they have to blow out like $10,000 to acquire a bunch of stuff. Like when I go to my card store to buy boxes or bulk or whatever, say, hey, let me just throw on a Perfect Order ETB. Why not? Because they're basically MSRP. I mean, they're like 59, 64, 69. So now I've got like 7 of them, and it's just like if you piece one here, one there, next thing you know, you got a closet full, and you don't have to like go gangbusters. I mean, in your investing history, have you always thrown crazy amounts of money at things, or have you just kind of nickel and dimed here and there as you see things, just to kind of take random chances on stuff?
Well, here's the problem, dude. Social media has warped everyone's brain. I mean, like, dude, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they're so cooked right now because, they are under the impression that everyone's a millionaire. They're under the impression that $100,000 is the new middle class and everyone makes $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
And they're under this impression that social media gives off by these stupid gurus that feed them these lies. And it's the same thing with Pokemon. It's just like, dude, for me, when I started off, like I said, I'd buy like a theme deck. I would buy like a pack of base set, which by the way, it sounds crazy now. A pack of base set when I got in the hobby was $50. Right. And that was like after a year. Like when I went to my first card shop, like I went to in like, 10, 15 years, there was base set packs unlimited there for like $30. And like Jungle and Fossil were like 15. And so for me, like spending for a month, I may go pick up a few packs and put those away and then maybe like get like a base set, theme deck or get like a jungle theme deck. Like, I mean, I may have spent like 100, 200, maybe sometimes a big month would come around. I have a little extra money, spend a little more, but like, or I would make some collection flips for the few months and save up, and then I'd buy like my first like base set booster box, which was like $2,000, which was crazy at the time for me. That was
Oh yeah.
that was a stupid That was the biggest purchase I ever made at the time. And so like, no man, I was I grew up middle class, never had any money. I mean, I started my own lawn care business and was making decent money, but I mean, I didn't have thousands and tens of thousands to throw around. But like again, over being in a hobby 10 plus years, everything snowballs, right? Things compound in value. You're continuing to add to them. It's just like a 401k, right? You're continuing to add money every single month. Everything is growing every single month, compounding. You're making plays and flips here and there, pulling a little money here and there, and it just grows and grows and grows until then when you're like nowadays when I'm throwing around these big numbers, it's like, well, yeah, but you have to understand these are all unrealized gains and then gains I'm realizing. It's
Yeah.
like Paldea Evolved, for example. That's one right now. I was buying those boxes when nobody wanted them at $85. And so it's like, well, now I can go sell a case of Paldea that I paid like 500 and something dollars for, and now it's going for what, like 2,000 something? Well, now that's like 1,500 profit that I can
Oh
just go
yeah.
buy something with that wasn't even my money. It's just appreciation. And so I think when you're starting out, don't think everyone's a millionaire, everyone's blowing thousands of dollars. Start out with what you're comfortable with, do it for long enough time, and it'll snowball into something big.
That's some solid advice, and I was kind of hoping that's what you'd say. And I'm pretty sure I've heard you say it before, but I really wanted to have you say that generically or not genuinely.
Yeah.
I can't even think of the word I'm looking for because I just a lot of people when I even in my dealings today, it's like, oh, I don't have enough to buy a whole case. Like, brother, you don't have to get a case. Get a booster bundle or something. Like, just something. I don't know. It's
Case
wacky.
was crazy. I remember that
Yeah.
first case, like case of evolutions. It was crazy. Like now, again, back then it was like $500, but still, it's like that was a huge purchase for me back then, and I still remember it. And so, yeah, man. I mean, if you're just starting out in the hobby, you definitely don't need to start out casing up.
Yeah. So I remember one of the first, it's probably about a year ago now. I don't remember exactly when, but one of the first pack break streams I was in for you, and I knew you were someone I wanted to watch and follow was, for those who don't know, for some reason, Nostalgia Nomics is like one of the most reputable people that do breaks. I highly suggest you check out one of his break streams one day. But I remember there was every now and then you'll do a giveaway or a entries into a giveaway for boxes or slabs or whatever. And there was one where it was slabs, and you had run a wheel, and the wheel wasn't on the screen. So you announced the winner of the slab, and then everyone in the chat was saying, "Hey, the wheel isn't on the screen." And without skipping a beat, you had a solution. You said, "Hey, my bad. We're going to give this to you, but we're also going to respin it. And if it's something better, you can keep it. And if not, then you can keep what you had." And it was like, that's the type of person that I want to invest my time into because it's just transparent, honest, and you're obviously not trying to do anything nefarious. And when you're dealing with
And there's
breaks,
remember we talked about that earlier. There's one of those situations where it's like, don't give it too much power. Don't give it too
yeah,
much attention. Just roll past it, and everyone
yeah,
just kind of rolls with the punch.
yeah, and it's especially with not to name any platform specifically, but there are some places that are a little more questionable than others. And in this hobby, and especially with doing breaks like that, it is like paramount to have a really good reputation when it comes to that stuff. Have you, when you first started, was it easier because you'd already had a following on YouTube, or what did you have to do to really hammer home that you're not that guy and that you can come in here, spend some money, whether it be $2 or 2,000, and know that you're going to be getting what you get, and you don't have to worry about it, and you just have a good time?
Well, okay, yeah, I did start out a little different. In the beginning, when I was brand new, I everything was ripped from booster boxes,
Yep.
and all the booster boxes were ripped on camera. And so all the packs were coming straight out of a booster box that was ripped on camera. And so, I guess unless there was a resealed box, there was basically no way, that you were worried about like, anything with the packs and all the things people do with packs or whatever. Um, as we grew and got bigger and bigger, that no longer became an option to continue to do that. And booster boxes became such a premium. And so we did have to obviously move to ripping packs from other products like collection boxes, tins, and all that. And obviously we don't have all the boxes on camera anymore that we're ripping
Sure.
from because obviously we have, a whole slew of sets and products. But yeah, I mean, I guess I just felt like I built up a good enough reputation in the beginning for it to be trusted. And the funny part is, I mean, I know there's like the Blake's Breaks thing. I know there's some people that have done some scummy things, but I mean, guys, if you guys really think about it, like logically, when you build a business up and you're, streaming as much as I am, there really is not a dollar amount that is worth you can get out of packs to try to like do all these like whatever weighing, scanning, metal detecting, weighting, all these different things, right? To get like some $500 card or $1,000 card out of a pack and go through all this trouble to get it, then it's worth to lose your audience and your trust, right? Like for me, it's way more beneficial for my business if I were to pull a God pack every single night on stream than it was if I were to spend my entire day trying to like search and find these weigh these God packs or reseal these God just to get them myself to have like a couple $1,000s in cards. Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't make anyone like thinking that way has such a short-term business mindset. It's like you are possibly risking losing your audience, your brand, your trust that is likely going to last for years and years and years in this hobby, accounting for millions of dollars in sales to try to like scam people out of a few hundred or few $1,000s in cards. It's it's brain dead behavior like that makes it so easy to compete in this hobby because people are that short-sighted.
Yeah, that and that's a really a good point to what we are talking about before, which is like if you're going to start, you just need to start because there's so many people out there that do the work for you. I mean, it's not hard to distinguish yourself as a trustworthy person versus a not trustworthy person, and the only thing that's stopping you from being one of those is by giving it a shot. Although nowadays, with the availability of product, giving a shot might be a little harder than normal. What would you say to the person who's wanting to get into rip and shipping? Like, I know I just, with part of what the deal I did, I thought about starting my own, but, sourcing's obviously a problem. Pricing, this, that, the other. What do you think some other barriers of entry are into breaking? And do you think there's going to be a kind of point where it's going to be kind of impossible for someone to start?
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate truth is you're going to have to support the scalpers and botters. I mean, that's kind of like the thing no one wants me to say, but it's the hidden truth that
Mm-hmm.
pretty much anyone doing rip and ships at a large scale, they're doing it, unless they just have such a large distribution, channel built up that they're literally getting enough product from distribution to do this. I talked about it before, like, I don't get these large distribution, allocations. Like, so what I get from distribution is gone in a few streams. It's like you couldn't run a business based on what I get, and so. Um, the only place to get large amounts of product, usually at a decent price, is going to be from people who, bought the stuff and have hundreds of collection boxes or scalp and they, have tons of product. And that's the unfortunate truth. Now, if you can technically make it work, right? If it's just you got no employees, you don't have any overhead, and you can find some deals online, whether it's some like big pack auctions go low or some product auctions go low or you want to buy some stuff at market and make a little bit of margin whatever it may be, like you can technically do that, but the margins are going to be very low in the beginning until you can build up relationships. And then I would say like, once you start building relationships and buying from people, they do like everyone likes to deal with people that they can trust, that they know they're going to get paid, that they know they're not going to have any issues, they're going to ship it to you, you're going to receive it, and there's no problems. And so like once that starts happening and you're able to take larger quantities, people are much willing to work a deal with you if you can take, large amounts of packs at once and they don't have to sell to like 20 different people. And
Yeah.
so you can, negotiate some rates there and build your margin a little bit. But it's definitely getting harder and harder, not just in the fact of sourcing, just the competition. It's just like you turn on any social media channel. I mean, there's people ripping on TikTok and Instagram and whatnot, Drip, Fanatics, eBay, YouTube, Twitch, and every one of those platforms has their big streams. Everyone's got their medium streams. Everyone's got their new streamers, and personality is going to set you apart. Obviously, building a following like you're doing on YouTube first is going to help. But I'm not gonna lie to anyone. It's not easy. It's a slow start. It's a really slow. I mean, I have friends right now that are trying to get into it, and it's a slow start. You know, it's not like going and setting up at a collecticon. It's like, well, if as long as I can get a table at a show, I'm on the same playing field as everyone else. It's like with social media, you got to get that attention. It's like you could
Mhm.
have the same product for a better price than everyone else, and you know, you got to get the eyes on them to be able to sell it. So it is hard.
The one tip that I would give to people, and I only know this from because I back during COVID, and I had plenty of people I befriended on Twitch, and I was in a bunch of streams. If you do start a rip and ship and you don't have a following, you can't just sit there and stare at the camera and not talk. Like if you have nobody in your stream, you have to be saying something, because if someone comes in your stream and you're just staring at the camera, just waiting for money button to click, they're just going to leave your stream right away. So you kind of have to like be in it to win it. You have to provide a nice area to be in and be, talkative, because if you don't have that following, you're going to have to do some extra work, and it doesn't take long for someone to walk in and walk right back out the door. Yeah,
Such good
it's
advice. It
yeah,
goes into the authenticity thing. It's just
yeah.
like I find it hard to believe, you know, that people are not just in it for the money when they have like no sense of excitement for what they're doing. And like I know like the whole meme, like some of like the early YouTubers, like it's overblown. You can tell it's fake, but like, dude, if you're ripping a freaking the biggest hit in a set, you're ripping a God pack, and it doesn't at least excite you. And like, dude, it's not even my cards, but it's exciting, right? Like
Yeah.
the slab stream last night you were talking about, dude, pulling somebody a freaking PSA 10 Pikachu, Forest Pikachu, pulling someone a PSA 10 Moonbryon. If that does not excite you for them, I don't know if you're actually liking what you're doing. I think you might be just like doing it for the money and you're not in it for the right reason. So like, yeah, I mean, the streams have to be fun, entertaining. Like talk to people, get people going. Like, you know, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, oh, not only that too, but like when someone loses, like, if they buy packs and they don't get, any hits, or they buy 15, 20 packs, they get one EX. I've seen plenty of streams where it's like, too bad, so sad, pal. And it's like, do they have to give you something extra? No. But if someone comes in and spends $100 or $150 on a bunch of packs in your stream, and they don't get a little bit of like a hookup or a consolation prize, it's just like another little aspect of just making it okay, this guy's got my back at least. He knows he spent a lot of money. Have them come back, because if it's just, you don't want anyone feeling bad when they walk in. And same thing with even last night. The I don't know who that guy's name was, but like he bought like 8,500 card draws in a row, and it's just like every time he kept whiffing it, and you just can't help but feel bad for the guy. And you could see it on your face, like it was visibly bothering you. And if I'm ripping from someone who's just like stone faced the whole time, I don't want any part of that. I don't think anybody else would either.
And again, I don't like having no empathy for people. Again, I think that just goes back to like, I think it's just not the right thing for some people. Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, I feel bad for anyone when they like try something like that and it doesn't go well. Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
you're sitting at the casino and someone like is sitting next to you playing blackjack and they lose like five hands in a row. Like, it's not your money, but like, how do you not feel bad for the guy? Like, oh, dude, sorry. Like, with anything in life, I feel like that. So it's like, again, I guess if not everything's for everyone, and so it's like if you have no excitement, you have no empathy, like you don't like pick up on that. Like, hey, this guy got nothing. You should probably throw him in something to like, not even. It's not even about like hoping they come back and buy more from you and trying to like retain the customer and all that stuff. It's just like, dude, I started out the stream and my one thing, I wanted to make sure everyone had a good time on the stream and went home feeling like they had a good time. Look, we do stuff all the time, all of us, where we go spend money and, it may not be the best scenario, but sometimes it's still a good time, right? Like, people go out and do things all the time where they spend money, lose money, but they go home like, we had a good time. Like, I just want people to have a good time, have a good experience with the pack opening. I mean, we a lot of the products we break down, we get promos out of. Like, I can throw in the promos for them. It's probably stuff they don't have for their collection already anyway, especially with how scarce product is. So like, hey, they didn't get anything like really expensive, but at least they got to fill out some part of their binder with some of these promos, some of these extra hits. And so like, it's just trying to make the situation as best you can. Like some people are just not going to be happy, but a lot of people like they'll appreciate it. They'll have a good time. They'll be able to, fill out the binder pages, whatever they can do. And I think that's more important than anything.
Yeah, and I think collectibles is probably the only or one of the very few hobbies where it's like expected that if you spend money, you get equal value to what you spend. I know there's like in the last year or two, like mystery bags and even people who don't understand breaking, paying a little extra for packs to have that kind of communal experience of opening. It's like, well, that's a waste of money. It's like, well, that's all relative to the person. I mean, I would argue that when you go to a concert and you spend $20 on a beer or $10 on a hot dog, I would never do that, but it's part of the experience. You're accepting it. That's what the market dictates, and you're paying it. So you can't really get mad at anybody else but yourself. So what's the problem? And the only problem is when someone is taking advantage of you and not taking advantage of you, and that's to me the clear cut, fine line and why this is looked at as a good or a bad thing.
Yeah, I think the entertainment aspect is missed. Yeah, like
It is.
if it's purely a transactional aspect and you're not like having a good time, you're not entertained, it doesn't feel like you're hanging out with a bunch of other people online, like, all enjoying the experience together. It's not your thing. Like you should not be going to streams. It's not just go order packs online, rip them by yourself at home and enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it. Like it's not for everybody. But yeah, I mean, when you taking the entertainment aspect, like you said, I mean, dude, these packs are not being marked up like Disneyland. Like we're not buying these hot dogs for 50 cents and selling for 10 bucks, right? It's
Yeah.
it's maybe more equivalent to like a restaurant, if that. Like, you maybe, yeah, you go to, a gas station and buy a beer there, but your restaurant's going to charge you, a little extra. It's not even marked up that much. It's like the margin on these packs are not much. You're paying a very small extra to have the entertainment. Sometimes, honestly, the market will rise while you own the packs, and you're actually charging like right at market price, if not sometimes under, on some of these packs. And so it's like, well, you're getting the same deal, and you're also getting entertainment built in. So it's like, I just think some people value that and other people
Yeah.
enjoy it. And then others just like, they only see the transactional cost. They're only looking for a return on their investment, which again, being entertained. There's no investment there. It's like, going to the casino and putting like $100 on black. And if you lose, like you had a bad night. It's just, it's kind of goofy. But if that's the only thing you care about is like the money, 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 I would say, dude, just go buy the cards, buy the actual card at market
Yeah.
price, put that in the binder, and that's the best possible route you can go. If you're worried about like if you're going to be able to grade a card at 10, and you're going to buy cards and try to grade them, but then you're going to be pissed off when you get an 8 or a 9, just buy the PSA 10. Put it in
Yeah.
your collection. Stop trying to like play this game where you're going to be unhappy if you don't get it. It doesn't go exactly your way, and you don't get an absolute return on it. That would be my best advice to those people. Don't
I,
do it.
yeah, I've always kind of looked at. I mean, I know you can make money doing it, but I've always looked at breaking as almost like a loss leader. Not necessarily to the goal to lose money, but if you are making money on potential ad revenue or other aspects of your streaming business, like there's nothing wrong with maybe just breaking even on everything you're selling just to have that, just that experience of having a bunch of people in a room. There's other aspects to go about it that I don't think a lot of people really look into because they're just, they see some of these bigger guys like you and they think, okay, well, he's probably buying packs for $2 and selling them for 15 and we're just raking in $100,000 a year. It's like they're Pokemon packs. It's not, even
The
now
best
there's, yeah. Go
the
ahead.
best time ever, dude, was, because no one, again, there was no anger, was when you could buy a booster box on the open market, right, for like $100. And then you could charge literally market price for the packs under MSRP at the time. I started
Hmm.
selling packs for $4. $4. And so you'd buy the pack, box for 100, you sell the packs for $4, after fees and stuff, you'd make a little bit of money. And people were paying less than MSRP. You had a margin there. The prices were all good. Like that was the best time for streaming. And everyone, laughs when I say that. But it was. There was no animosity. There was no one upset. Here's the other thing people don't understand. Not everyone wants to buy a mass amount of packs. So it's like, take like I don't know, if you do a box break on one of these older sets now, like a Sun and Moon box. Well,
Sure.
people can't spend $1,600, but maybe they want to take a chance on like a $70 pack and possibly pull this grail card they've always wanted, right? So it's like that used to be the thing too. It's like, well, I don't want to buy $100 booster box, but I want to buy 5 packs. And so like there was a reason to have the loose packs because if people wanted to not buy a full box or a full ETB, they could just buy 1 or 2 packs, and there was like a transaction that made sense there. Where nowadays it's just everything's so convoluted. There's packs everywhere. Everything's expensive, and everyone's angry. And so I get it. Like I get it. I just do what I said before. I try to like not let it affect me. I let it roll off. Anyone that comes in that's
Yep.
really trolly, I ban them and let them go do their own thing somewhere else on Reddit or whatever. And I just keep rolling because I get it. Everything's expensive. It sucks. I think it sucks. I hope it goes back somewhat like it used to be, but it's kind of we're all operating in the market that we
Yeah.
have.
I'm starting to think that the cataclysmic event, because I remember like with previous like bull runs and bear markets, it's always been the supply where the supply is low and then all of a sudden they ramp it up. All these stores get all this product they don't expect and they have to fire sell everything. I'm starting to think that this time around it's going to be the investors that aren't able to justify holding on to stuff. When you have so many people holding on to so much stuff, that there's going to be one little event that's going to make everyone freak out and try to sell everything. And because so many people are going to be trying to offload it, no one's going to want to buy it. And then it's going to just go super, super low. What do you think is or possibly will be the Thanos snap that will kind of cool things off, or do you think it's still just another year or two down the road before things tamper off a little bit?
Man, it's weird to see Perfect Order be so. Perfect Order was the least open setup we've ever had, ever in our history. Like, Shrouded Fable was ripped more than Perfect Order. It's weird to see it do so bad on stream, and from other streamers I talk to, it's the same way, and still hold up such a high price.
Yeah,
So yeah, it does seem like that. Like, it's being held up by people just holding the product 'cause it's not getting ripped, which is rough. Like, with other sets, you're like, okay, well, those got ripped into oblivion. So it's like, okay, it makes sense that they're rising in price. Like Crown Zenith. Crown Zenith, man. We used to go through 500 packs a night of Crown Zenith. It makes sense why it was everywhere, and then all of a sudden it's really expensive because it all got ripped. So it's like
yeah,
you look at Perfect Order and you're like, ooh, 151 got ripped. Like, so yeah, I do kind of know what you're saying when it finally snaps. I'm not gonna say who. You've had them on your stream though, so someone you've had on your stream
sure.
has told me that a good size of the portion of sales on their site for the last few months have been buy now, pay later.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And that is getting very concerning. I have friends in the hobby who have, like the majority, if not all of their net worth in Pokemon. And they still are not selling and taking any money off the table and, saving it for a rainy day, like cash, or putting it in other investments just to diversify a bit. It's a little scary when, a lot of people have all or a good portion of their net worth all put it in a hobby. It's a bit scary when a lot of people are buy now, paying later. Scary, like things like you said, everyone wanting to buy full cases when they're brand new and, wondering how
Yeah.
to spend tens of thousands of dollars on stuff. And, obviously there's the print facility coming up. There's people worried about 30th anniversary, new era. Um, I truly don't know. Like that's my honest answer. I think Rudy Alpha Investments made a video where he's like, I've never seen a market like this. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know the long-term effects of this. I'm very much in his mindset. If you go back 2 years on my channel, dude, I was as close to a capital G guarantee as I could be that buying Pokemon products 2 years ago was the right move. Like I was going so all in, it wasn't even funny. Every bit of money I could scrounge together was going into Pokemon. It made so much sense. I can no longer say that right now.
Yeah.
Everything seems very, very scary to me. I'm still staying the course. I'm just not going as all in. I'm definitely like taking profits on things. Like as you average into positions, I'm also averaging out.
Sure.
Especially things like I made it public. I sold some of my Ascended Heroes that I had. Like bought Ascended Heroes early. Everything ran up like crazy. I sent some Ascended Heroes bundle cases and ETB cases to sell. And you know depending if new sets do that, if Chaos Rising or Pitch Black or the anniversary set, if we see some ridiculous run ups, I may do the same thing there. First partner, a lot of people are putting those away. I ripped a lot of my first partner on stream because I'm not sure if people know this. Like the distribution price on booster boxes, right, is between $95 to $105 on average. So if a box is 200, you're basically double distro price. I believe the distro price on first partner was like $15. If I'm not
Oh wow.
mistaken. If I'm not mistaken. So you're talking like a 4x out of the
Yeah.
gate
Yeah.
on these products. That scares me. Like Ascended Heroes, a bundle is like 15, whatever, $18 for distro, whatever it costs. and a bundle selling for 90. Again, my local card shop had bundles on the shelf for 92.99, limit one. You have to limit something that
Yeah.
is 92.99 out the gate on a new set. Like those things start to worry me a little bit.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know. I don't know when or how it happens or where it happens, but I think people should be aware that we're in unprecedented times right now.
oh yeah, it's definitely scary, and it's definitely food for thought to think of before you start kind of going too ham. So what's up next for Nostalgia Nomics? I mean, you got a flourishing rip and ship. You got a crazy YouTube channel. Congrats on 40K, by the way. That's insane. Do you plan on ever opening a store? Or are you going to start spreading out to doing breaks on other streams? What's next on the itinerary for expanding the Nostalgia Nomics empire?
Yeah, definitely. So definitely no store. I know people that have went that route or have tried to go that route, and man, you have to do so much to try to keep these distributors
Yeah.
happy. And the little bit extra they throw you, I don't think is worth it. In terms of like, when you take into account the store costs, having an employee there and all that stuff, from the extra little profit you're going to make from getting, in a little bit more with the distros, you have to run tournaments. You have to do a lot of different things, to get a lot of those, kind of like higher tier levels at distributors. And it's just not a route I want to go. I don't think it's the best use of your time for the profitability. And so we're going to continue to expand out the live streams. We just got accepted into Fanatics, and so
Nice.
I'm gonna
Congrats, man.
have, yeah. So we're gonna have streamers starting on Fanatics here coming up in a couple weeks. So we'll be live on there on Fanatics. Obviously, I will continue to do the YouTube rips and digital rips. And then I still have my eBay live account sitting there. I haven't been using. I do plan to start getting. I'm in the process right now of kind of reevaluating like where my time is spent and the best way to use my time. And so I do want to try to get that available too, because I think I am going to really pivot to a streaming business, and it's going to be my channel. It's going to be Fanatics. It's going to be eBay, and we're going to really start expanding out that way. Because, like you said, that with the physical store, I know it's a lot of people's dreams. I think it's a lot more trouble and a lot more risk than people think, especially if you do start getting into a lot of these card games
Yeah.
and the market does shift. Well, now you're not just eating your Pokemon allocations that you can barely sell at a profit if you can. Now you're eating Magic and One Piece and all these different allocations that you built up because you're making money on them now. Well, then in the future, now you're getting these $250,000 invoices and you have product that you literally cannot move at a profit. And that's when the fire sales start, and that's when things stop moving, and that's when you can really get caught, and that's when businesses can really get into trouble, go under, have all kind of problems. And so I don't want to put myself in any that kind of that kind of spot. So I think what we're doing, works. The model works. Like I said, other than like the real heavy bulk, which I never tried the bulk business, but Eli at Pokemart USA, Rob RNG Games. I've talked with them about it. They've kind of given me rundowns. And so I know how it works. It's just that's something I want to dip my foot into. But I've tried the vending thing. The vending thing, unless you got local shows, it can make some sense. Traveling for vending, very, very hard to make it make sense on a dollar per
Oh
hour
yeah.
basis. People can say it makes sense to like see your buddies, travel, make some money, but like as strictly a numbers business perspective, I don't think it makes sense. When you take into account travel, hotels, food, the actual time hours you're spending with everything. So I didn't like that. The grading thing, it's just people make good money grading. It's just, man, with all the turnaround times now, with the costs going up, with the uncertainty of the market and the slab market, how volatile it can be, it's not something I want to build a long term business model on. And then the physical store, it's not either. So it's like I just we've kind of honed in and figured out. I think this model is the one we want to go with. So that's kind of what we're gonna
Good.
go with going forward.
Well, we're getting towards the end of it, so I mean, I really appreciate your time again, man. Before we sign off, I always give the opportunity. Did you have any topics that we didn't discuss that you wanted to go over? And if not, do you have any parting words for the fellow pokey nerds, investors, or future business persons of the future?
I would say do what I did. Get in the hobby and try a little bit of everything and figure out what you like. Everyone likes something different. Like you were talking about, some people are just not going to like to be on camera, not going to like to stream. And there's like infinite things you can do in the hobby behind the scenes that you don't even have to have a following for. And try a little bit of everything out, see what you enjoy, see what works. You don't need to like every aspect. You don't need to like every creator. you can there's so many different niches in this hobby, and guess what, there are successful people in every single one of them. And so you could have someone come on stream and tell you the exact opposite thing of everything I said, and they
Yeah.
could be just as successful doing what they're doing. And that's what's so great about this hobby. It's like there's no one size fits all, which I love. So find what you enjoy, what you like, and I promise you there's a path to success with it. But I mean, what's next for you, man? What's your thoughts with this whole hobby thing? How are you gonna approach 2026 into 2027 for the channel, for the business?
Yeah. I've always had the illusions of grandeur of having a store. I got I've played Magic competitively since high school. So I know all the, the pain points that a store can go through. And when I started my journey, I got it through Rob. I've been a patron of his for years, and I got on the bulk game. I've been grinding that out. So my goal is that in the next 2.5 years, I want to have $50,000 to $100,000 in the bank, so that way I can either quit my job, go part time, and really just go for it. Yeah, that'd be because I think post COVID, the stores that were out there that had really good in store communities died. And I don't know if that's ever going to come back, but I would really like to give that a shot of having, a really flourishing Friday night Magic scene, a really flourishing tournament scene. I know there's a lot of work that goes into it, but it's something that I've always loved. I enjoyed it. And it's a lot of times when you enjoy something, it makes it easier to try to implement that because when it's done right, what it can mean. But yeah, I'm excited, with this deal I did with the bulk and, getting things going on other aspects other just than bulk. I'm having a hard time right now, not trying to put my hands in too many pies and overstretch the little bit of the windfall that I've had. So that's probably the biggest thing I'm struggling with, but, I'm looking forward to it.
Like, and this is not me. It's like blowing smoke. Like you'll do well with the store because again, you understand all the gaming aspect, like the tournament aspect, like the community aspect, but also you have the singles knowledge and the singles experiments. Whereas like that's the lifeblood of a lot of card shops. Like you'll have the bulk going, the singles game, you'll make a margin there. Like the people who I would say fail the most at card shops are the ones who think they open their doors and they get distribution and they put sealed product on the shelf and like that's how they make money. That's not how you make money. It's never been that way. It's
You're talking about 90% of people who start a store during Pokemon booms. It's all these people that are opening a store now. A lot of them aren't going to be open in a year or two when Pokemon goes down and they're not doing anything else. So it's.
But you will. The singles are always there. Like there's always going to be people that are there for the singles. There's always margin on the singles with collection buys. Like the sealed price, great. It's icing on the cake when things are good, but when things are bad, it's a lot of cash flow that's being eaten up by taking stuff from distro and letting it sell slowly. So like with everything you've been doing, I think you'll do well with it. And again, like you have passion for it. So like it'll drive you to work harder and do better at it than people who are just trying to, put on these things to get more distro access. Like it's something you actually, want to do.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, man. That's it's nice to hear that from other folks that you kind of look up to and aspire to be where they are. So I appreciate that. Before we go though, if you want to make sure you let the people know where to find you and where to find your content and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, pretty much it's been Nostalgia Nomics everywhere. We got really lucky that, when I created that back in the day, it wasn't really taken anywhere. So Nostalgia Nomics on YouTube, Instagram, like I said, we'll be on Fanatics here soon, eBay. All the places. It's just Nostalgia Nomics. If you guys ever want to reach out, same email, nostalgianomics@gmail.com. So pretty easy. No numbers or letters or anything in there. No symbols. It's just real easy. Nostalgia Nomics everywhere.
Nostalgia Nomics 42069, baby. Yeah. There we go. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it very much again for stopping by. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next episode. Have a good one. Bye.